More medications, less health. Something's broken. Traditional medicine manages symptoms, but true healing addresses root cause. I'm Josh Rimany, pharmacist turned healer. At Beyond the Pills, we merge ancient wisdom with modern-day science to inspire you through stories of transformation, practical trainings, and holistic healing. Join me and other practitioners as we guide you towards vibrant health, body, mind, and spirit, and move beyond symptom management into true healing. Hello. Welcome back to this episode of Beyond the Pills. I'm Josh Rimany, pharmacist turned healer, and today I'm joined by someone who has been not only a dear friend and mentor of mine for many years, Cyd Alper Sedgwick. Cyd is a Feng Shui master. She's been studying Feng Shui for 30, 40, I don't even know how many years. We will find out, but most of my life, for sure. She has very experience with energy, consciousness, and the unseen patterns that shape all of our lives. She has studied and mentored under many people. We share the same friends. She's a shaman in her own right. Cyd has worked with me in my home, in my business, and in my personal journey, always reminding me that energy is the foundation of healing and transformation. Her wisdom goes far beyond design, and we'll find out it's about harmony, flow, and the deeper truth of how energy influences not only our body, mind, and also spirit. I'm so excited to bring this conversation to you guys. We've had many conversations over the years that I often share privately about consciousness, energy, and living in alignment so that you can experience her beautiful presence and guidance today. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Josh. What a wonderful opening. I love it. I like it. I like it scripted.
I like doing those for people because it just, you get to hear your side, right? And then sometimes we don't take pause in that. And so you've been a monumental person in my life in many different ways. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. This is why we are not using the video today, because we've had exclusive conversations mouth to ear, right? We haven't had any video chats. We speak in person on occasion, but most of our conversations is rooted around this mouth to ear approach. And so thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wisdom. Let's start off by just, introducing people to you. You've been studying and living energy work for decades. How do you describe what Feng Shui really is beyond just design?
Well, actually, if we open up the translation of Feng Shui, it means wind and water. The water, we have huge amounts of water in our lives, and the wind creates the energy of that water. So that's basically Feng Shui. It's wind and water. It's the flow of energy in the clockwise, same direction of the planet. We're moving in the same direction as the planet with Feng Shui. When we start to try and do something else, that's when we have all the obstructions that stop the natural flow. So Feng Shui is about simplicity. It's really hard for us to live our lives as simply as possible because we have coercively, under the yang energy of the last 5,000 years, which is beginning to peter out, which I'm delighted to hear, is beginning to peter out, to allow us to start to really declutter not only our homes and businesses, our garden sheds, our garages, our spare rooms, our bodies, our brains, all of that. There's a whole bunch of clutter in there that we don't need, and we carry it around with us. And so that's basically what Feng Shui is the basis of it is natural flow of positive energy. I call it the quantum physics of positive energy.
Well, we've
Go
had many of these conversations before because I think a lot of the times people listen and they hear feng shui and they think, balanced placement of furniture or, colors and things of that nature that match the energy, which is a part of that. But we'll talk a little bit about that. But what you said is really important because there's the modern aspect to this ancient wisdom. And this conversation that we have in this podcast is all about the fusion of those two. So I love that you brought in the quantum energy because we're
Mhm.
hearing about this more from a modernized perspective. But this is something that's always been a part of the principles of feng shui and decluttering and moving in the flow of energy, the things that we cannot see.
Yes, and it's sort of interesting to note that yes, things are beginning be simplified. I think all of us, a lot of us, are sort of pushing against the amount of stuff that we have. I just moved from a very large condo down to a tiny, tiny little apartment, but so much so that I call this the boathouse. But it was amazing that even I, who've lived this life through two generations, by the way, my mother was a feng shui master, and as I am now. So, it's living life so simply that we understand that we don't need a lot of the stuff that we carry around with us, not only the physical stuff, but the mental stuff. When we start to work on the feng shui of the body, which I started working with and on several years ago, it was amazing how much stuff we can let go of. And recognizing that absolutely everything we do makes a difference. And it's either a positive difference or a negative difference. And we have that choice. We have that freedom of choice. If we want to carry around years and years of hurt and sorrow, and we all do it, I'm no exception to that rule. But once we start to recognize that true feng shui means living in the present, and living in the present is incredibly hard for our brains to understand, but it's incredibly releasing and wonderful when we actually just know that we can live in the present. What happened yesterday, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and for me, 108 years ago, has got nothing at all to do with me living my life and breathing today. So today is a completely fresh era of feng shui, particularly in my home. So everything in my home has a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, it doesn't belong here. And I don't mean a practical purpose. There's also beautiful art on the walls and beautiful pieces of art that I own and my rugs, etc. But it all has a purpose because everything, absolutely everything I do makes a difference to my life and the life of everybody around me.
Love that. And part of clinging on to things is that attachment we have to all this stuff, right? And I think
Right.
the first, second, and maybe third lessons I've got for you years ago was to simply declutter your office, declutter your mind, declutter your house, just declutter.
Yeah.
And then reminding me or having me learn through that experience of how does it feel, right? When we declutter our lives even if it's one room or one desk, it feels different. And I think that's part of this process that we take. Our my programming that I'm launching very soon, it's been launched, but we're launching it nationwide. You know about it, but like it's partly rooted around those concepts of simple, right? Simplicity. Simple can be sophisticated, but it
Yes.
doesn't have to be complex. And so
Right.
making wellness made simple is part of what I love to do because I think people get complex even in their own health journeys about this and that and diagnoses and labs and all these supplements when we haven't really centered around the basics yet.
Right. And even that decluttering is decluttering the types of foods we eat as well. You know, if you're going to drag synthetic things into your sacred space, your home and your office and your place of business, those are your sacred spaces. And in Feng Shui, there are two super sacred spaces. And one of those super sacred spaces is the kitchen. So the kitchen is where we bring food in to prepare to feed ourselves and our families. Okay. So knowing that we're only bringing the very, very best, not the most expensive, but the best of what we want our families to eat, what we want to put into our bodies. So our home becomes that sanctuary of sacredness where we honor who we really are. We are divine beings, each and every one of us, no exception. Absolutely no exception. If we are living in this moment, in this mindful moment, then we are a sacred being. And we need to learn to allow ourselves the joy of good health and a good mindset. And part of that starts with our homes. So if we have, just like, if you open up your fridge and you go, oh my God, what's this at the back of the fridge? And it's a moldy old piece of cheese, you can't wait to throw it out. Okay. So that's how we need to look at stuff that we have around us, which is draining us of our positive energy.
Does it start with awareness?
It definitely starts with awareness. It's coming out of the coercive energy, as I mentioned earlier, the yang energy that Lao Tzu talks about in the Tao. That's that coercive energy where everybody was doing what everybody else was doing. So we have had cartoons and weird movies in the past of everybody wearing the same thing, walking in the same way, eating the same foods, not recognizing that each and every one of us is an individual. We are all of us are individual divine beings. Okay. So if we start to become aware, then we don't accept all the garbage that, we've been taught. Now, we're not blaming anybody. I have to stress that immediately. We're not blaming our parents, our teachers, or anybody for what it is. We just, if you like, we were taking information and we thought that's what we have to do to fit in. Okay. We lost between being born and the age of 7. We knew that we were special. We knew that we had the ability to do a lot of things, and we had an enormous amount of wisdom in our bodies. We were born with it. That's the Ling energy. At the moment of conception, that Ling energy, your Qi energy, enters you. And that's a very divine moment. Okay. And so you look at your children, anybody looking at their children or anybody, with children, it's a case of they are very special beings, not because they're your children, but because they are divine beings and they're here for a purpose. So mindfulness is being present now, not yesterday, but now in this very moment, right now, being mindful.
It's such a simple and useful, right? We talk, there's all this talk about mindfulness and being present and in that space. I love where you brought in, the 0 to 7, where, there's the ancient wisdom side. I've studied the neuroscience side of that piece of mind, but like where the spirit and the soul have awakened into these special, beautiful beings that haven't been corrupted with programming yet. It's
Right.
at those formative ages. You and I have talked many times about programming and
Mhm.
child emotional programming, but looking at it from this perspective of these beautiful beings, these souls that are awakening to all of everything. They're you look at these children and they are present in the moment, right? They're not worried about the present, the past or the future. They're really just centering in on every single day, every single moment, and seeing the awe on my little girls' faces when they were in those ages was such a beautiful place just to witness. He
Yeah.
says it is
Yeah.
true what you said. It's just so true. So thank
Right.
you for bringing that up.
Yeah. But, we've all done this. We've all been coerced into fitting in. And so, that's when from the age of 7, and I think this is a scientific fact, but this is what I believe. But I believe that somebody has, really worked at this more accurately than I have, that we download our childhood from our parents and our communities, our friends and our teachers. And you see it over and over and over again. People following, let, let's say, uh, Taylor Swift, bless her heart. She's a wonderful person, and I don't know her, but I assume that she's a wonderful person. But this mass following is because people have to attach to something that's wonderful and makes sense to them, and don't recognize that they are the same. She's a divine being in her own right, as is all her siblings and everybody else, but so are the people that are desperate to be part of that community. So we give up our lives and our beliefs because we want to fit in. So we forget that we came with all this information. From the age of 7 onwards, we think that we just have to fit in. No matter what, it's important that we fit in. And then the trouble starts, and that we have to protect ourselves. And so we're creating who we think we are, not who we are. We don't have to create who we are because we're already created. We just have to learn to grow with it.
What are some things you bring clients through to get to that? I know from my perspective, and you've been really instrumental with me and moving towards wholeness in my own self and what I would consider authenticity. Is what I think we're talking about here is we've shared this on some other episodes where we talk about living your life, our own lives in that authentic way. And I think that's part of what we're talking about here is everyone has the right to be vibrantly healthy and vibrantly alive. And to me, that means we're moving towards what is in alignment with us, the soul, our purpose. But talk to the community here, the tribe we've created here, the audience about what does that look like with you? How do you bring people back to that space where they've forgotten, as you said?
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because, as you know, Josh, we've had conversations for many, many years now, and each and every one of them has been a delight, and each and every one of them has been a tough transition because, again, it's the decluttering. It's the decluttering of the coercive belief that we are just one of a big mass of people, like the amoeba. We're just all part of, we're just in there, and little bits of us break off to create another set of amoebas. That, remember that from biology 100 years ago. Okay. But it's living our life, understanding that each and every one of us has, it's not that we have the right, but we have the divine right to understand that we live our lives differently from each other. We live our divine lives at a different pace to Mary that lives next door. Okay? They have their real world. We have our real world, but we have to know that we have that grounding that is necessary to give us the strength to keep moving forward, no matter what. No matter what we get knocked down with, where we have a broken heart or we have, sadly, maybe an illness or a loss, we are still divine beings. So we have to understand that our state of consciousness is important for us to develop. And it's important for us to develop as the individual that we are. Your Ling energy that entered you at the time of your conception is your chi. Your chi, I like to describe it like it's a candle and there's a flame. That flame can be very bright and it can be very healthy, or it can dim. And when you allow that light to be snuffed out by other people's behavior, then you're going to get sick and sadly you're going to lose your life. Okay. But getting to the point in conversations is all about decluttering, decluttering all the sadness, all the history, all the stuff, but recognizing also the responsibility in each and every one of us is not to point a finger and say that person hurt me, therefore I'm going to behave badly, or I'm going to be miserable, I'm going to make everybody else's life miserable. No, we have to accept responsibility for ourselves. So just like everybody else, I've had a lot of bad things happen to me, but I came to the conclusion probably many years ago now that, okay, what was my part in this? And when you start to recognize that each and every one of us has had a part in it, it's not all that person's behavior. It's my behavior as well. And it's not me behaving badly. It's me allowing the other person to treat me badly. Therefore, I'm not honoring my own divine self, first and foremost. Now, in the Tao, which I talk about a lot and I teach a lot, we talk about the great integrity. And integrity is actually part of the Bagua map for Feng Shui, which is called fame. And I quickly tell people it's not about how famous you are or how you're going to gain fame. It's about your integrity. And it's not how you view your integrity. It's how the universe views your integrity. So then we go back to the Tao, the great integrity. The number one rule in the great integrity, which Lao Tzu developed, is you love yourself first. Now, in the coercive yang energy of the last 5,000 years, we've always been taught to give to other people first. Do this, do that. But if you're on an airplane and the masks fall out of the ceiling, they tell you to put the mask on yourself first, then your children. Now, our coercive teaching is, I put it on my children first, but then we risk our children not having a mother or a father. Do you see how this works? We have to love ourselves first. We have to put ourselves first so that we can develop that love for everybody around us. Then we have an abundance of love to give, and we're not resentful, and we're not angry. We're not coercively demanding to be made special.
Well, it's the whole concept of, I think one of my friends, Bren, calls it self-full or self-rich, where we're not doing it in a selfish way. And you taught me this, and I've gone through my own spaces. Like when your cup is over full, then you can impart what's left for others. Rather, I had this wrong for many years where it was business, people first, but beyond me. And I love giving. I love, me, we're healers. So we love doing that. But the energy is something that becomes, I guess the way I would put it, is distorted in some ways when there's not enough for you. right? And for the person. So I love that you said it in your way, because there are many ways to look at this, but the concept is true. A big capital T truth is like love yourself fullness until you have enough to share with others. So thank you.
Right. 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 And it's when we heal peace by listening, not only listening to ourselves, excuse me, but listening to people outside of ourselves, then we're not reacting. One of the worst things that we can do, and we all do it. I did it for years and years and years. We react to something, and then we desperately try to put it all right after we reacted. But Lao Tzu, there's a wonderful little verse that Lao Tzu wrote, and it says, "The wise are heard through their silence, always self-full through selflessness." Selflessness, not selfishness, selflessness. So, and I think it's recognizing that if we take care of ourselves first, then we have an abundance of everything to give everybody else. And there's no reason for us not to, because we have an abundance of it. So, I think there's so many people have been so sick for so long simply because they don't have it to give anymore. And then they're scraping the barrel. You can, in that saying, scraping the barrel, trying to find something to give, give. Well, the bank balance is empty by that time. You have a debit and you have a credit. And if it's not balanced, and if you're not balanced and life isn't balanced, and Feng Shui is a very important aspect of balance, then you can't be you. You can't be yourself. And then, but do you even know who yourself is? And that's why in conversations, we start to recognize very gently in conversations, as you well know, we start to find our way through the maze, through all the garbage, all the decluttering. We're decluttering all our emotions. It's not therapy. It's a different kind of healing. I like to call it spiritual healing, and it's not religious. It's a spiritual healing. It's recognizing that I am totally decluttered inside of myself, that is bursting out of the top of my head. And I'm unwell, I'm angry, I'm upset, and all because we need to declutter, we need to feng shui the mind, body, and spirit.
I love that you said gently, right? I think a lot of times, then, especially in the West world, we have this pill for the ill, get it done, rip the Band-Aid off approach. And, and so I had that thought this morning, anticipating this conversation, thinking about the journey that I've taken and then that we've had and shared together, and thinking about how do you talk to someone? Because I have this too when in my coaching and the people that I mentor and coach that work with me, there is this I want to get into the mantra that you've shared with me, but is the concept of like allowing it to unfold rather than being so caught up with making it happen. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's the push less, allow more.
Right. I wanted you to say it. So I borrowed that for many years, and it's deepened my experience in life and spiritually. Those simple 4 words have had such a pronounced definition for me in my life, and ever expanding. So talk to us a little bit about those 4 words.
It's those 4 words multiply over and over and over again. It's really fascinating. And I like to write the push less on the top line, and then a gap, and then underneath allow more. And as you study the push less, there's a whole range of emotions. come through. Like, do I push? Should I not push? Should I give up? Should I do this? Should I do that? But just allow more for yourself, allow more for the other person, allow this, allow that. And I think those 4 words are so incredibly powerful that, it, even now I still often bring them up for myself, even though obviously I've taught the push less, allow more over and over again to so many people. And to be honest with you, I don't even know where they came from. I don't know where those 4 words came from, but it's sort of like a big gâteau cake. There are many, 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 many layers in those two sets of words: push less, allow more. And I think if you sort of stick that up on your desk or on your fridge or, in your car even, you sort of give yourself permission that you don't have to keep pushing. If you have to keep pushing so hard, then you need to be pushing somewhere else. You can't move that car if the brake is still on, no matter how hard you push it. And, allow yourself time to stop and take a break and be nice to yourself. That's you honoring your divine self. I think those 4 little words are very, very important because they give us license, they give us breathing space to really look at the power of those 4 words. Pushing, we push, 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 because that's our coercive nature. That's how we've been taught to behave in that way. And in honoring our ancestors, we continue to do so and have done so now for the last 5,000 years. And that's the yang energy, the yin yang. It's the yang energy is to push and force and demand. And it's the male energy. That's not to say that I've got anything against men. I absolutely do not. But we all, even females, have a lot of male energy. But as we push, 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 we forget to recognize that we don't need to. We can actually stop. And one of the most important things to learn, most important thing I've ever learned, is not to react. And that's a really, really hard one, because we're already formalizing in our minds what we're going to say before the other person's still in the middle of their argument. So we react, and that's a complete waste of time and a complete waste of our energy. So if we can learn not to push in that sense, but to push for the right things, not the wrong things, that will help us deal with the grounding that we need for peaceful living. So the push less by all means. Allow more is allowing not only ourselves to have grace for ourselves, but to have grace for the situation as it arises. So there are many, many ways that push less, allow more can be used and operated and considered and thought about. And it's really up to the individual to work those 4 little words out and use them as a guideline for themselves. So, but there is a lovely little saying that from this pain, when you get enough pain from this gives you enough to blossom. And I think that's the allow more of those 4 little words, that little mantra.
Yeah, I've used them for many, many years now. And like I said, it's deepened for me. It deepens as time grows. And, part of that process is to allow for what I've been calling divine timing. Sometimes as visionaries and entrepreneurs and go-getters and moving, you see where things are going, but sometimes that timing of it manifesting into realities or it becoming a reality takes a different time frame. And that's just
Yeah.
something that I've learned over the time. And the other thing that deepened for me, probably maybe, I don't know how long ago, but when I think we had a conversation and it was like this big aha where he had is like, push less does not mean don't push,
Right.
right? We have to take action, but we also have to allow for whatever's to unfold. So to me, it's really balancing. There's never really balance, I feel. I think it's just understanding that sometimes we may be pushing too much. We need to push a little less, take foot off the gas. And sometimes we need to allow more and let things unfold naturally. And I think,
Right.
like you said, it's one of those sayings that I've kept close and dear to my heart and my being, because it is one of those things where you're never going to solve that equation. It's just something
Mhm.
that's going to deepen over time. And I think it's just like the journey, right? When we're on this journey of life and consciousness, there's the onion that unfolds, but it never ends. And when you can sit with that with the mindset or the energies of, and that's okay, that's actually a good thing, then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, I think one of the important things is recognizing, yes, you're absolutely right about it doesn't mean not taking action. It doesn't mean just sitting there like a blob and not having self-worth. But it is about action equals energy equals positive energy. So ultimately it has to be to a positive place. And that positive place allows that cycle of positive energy to move in the same direction as the planet, as the universe. We move in a particular direction. If we're pushing against that energy, then things are going to become unraveled. So it's not accepting our lot and just saying, oh, well, okay, well, I'm not going to try anymore. It's really sort of sitting at it. And as you know, Josh, I like to teach people to look at things from a different angle. Sometimes it's just a different angle that we need to look at, not keep pushing in the same direction, which is a negative. So I was listening to um something on Gaia recently, and I think it was on Gaia. This man had a stroke, a young man, and he had two little girls, I believe. I won't say his name because I haven't got his permission. But what struck me out of the whole documentary was him saying the stroke was a necessary purge for learning. And he's paralyzed from the neck down. He's beginning to walk now, but for years and years he was paralyzed from the neck down. And that's another thing to bear in mind is, why is this happening? Why is something happening to me? What is my part? What is my responsibility in this? And that's, a very important aspect as well. We can always point fingers and blame, but we have to look at I always say to myself, okay, what's my part in this? What did I do? What didn't I do? What's my responsibility in this situation?
Because that's all we really own, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's like pointing the fingers inward, you know,
Yeah.
versus pointing. We can always look for the outside world affecting us, right? But when we point our fingers inward, is that the phrase I use a lot that helps for sure is because, you know, there is no there everything is for some level of purpose, and sometimes we don't, that purpose or that reasoning or that learning doesn't unfold right away. Again, there's some things that have happened in my life over this past year. You've been through this journey with me, but like,
Mhm.
some things have unfolded just at the right time. Like, sometimes you have like you said, a piece of art or some level of something where you knew you wanted it is there, and then for some reason its purpose reveals to you.
Right.
And so sometimes we don't have again, that's that allow more piece, which I love. We're deep diving in this because sometimes we don't know. And I think
what is my part is the other thing is like, what am I supposed to be learning here?
Right.
When I say that to myself in any situation, whether it's deemed good or bad or negative or positive, it's what am I supposed to learn here? Because everything is a learning experiment and everything happens for a reason. Like you said, your friend or your acquaintance, unfortunate things can happen, but they're there for a reason for us to learn something at that timeline.
Right. Well, and I think that brings us back to finding the source of what does this mean? What does it represent? Now, we can do all kinds of things with Feng Shui to allow the energy to flow in a way that declutters us from so much of this. As a Feng Shui master, I've seen just about everything. But I think it's also recognizing that what's the message in this? What can I do? What's the source of this problem? It's not Ethel. Ethel didn't steal my bagel and run away with it. It's what's the source of that reason? Maybe she was hungry. Maybe I could have been more generous. But it's going to the source of the push less, allow more is going to the source of our own being and recognizing that we are filled with wisdom. We are absolutely chock-a-block full of wisdom. We were born with this wisdom. But by the age of 7, we had forgotten it because we wanted to fit in. And you know all of this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But there are some people that don't know it, that they think that the whole world is against them. But, if we actually go back to the source of our being, we begin to understand why all of this has a purpose. And we weren't just born to do something like, I don't know, sweep floors or make pills. We're actually here to learn, and we're actually here to recognize our part in the makeup of the planet as it is right now in this very moment. What's my purpose? And once I know what my purpose is, then I can do it. I don't have to be confined to, I can't do that because I don't have any training. I didn't go to school. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. So, I'm just going to give up and become a blob until the time comes for me to die. Life is not a bitch and then you die. That's exactly what it's not. Life is about learning. No matter what we want to learn or what we don't want to learn, we will learn, whether we like it or not. So we might as well go halfway to accepting it. So we push less and we allow more.
Well, and the thing is, you brought up a good point is like, we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to expand. My question is, we've had this conversation many times off recordings for sure, is you mentioned that 5,000 year cycle. Well, where are we in our consciousness now? Because you seem to have this excitability when we talk about these topics now, because why now? Like, why is humanity ready for expanding beyond the physical and into these realms of understanding energy and intuition and moving from not just the intellect, but into this intelligence that, like you said, that is untapped because we've forgotten it because it's always been there. And, the sages and the gurus of the world, there's like, you're already there. And so talk to me a little bit about why now? Why is consciousness moving in this direction? And why do you think humanity is ready for moving beyond?
Well,
this is beyond the pills, right? Beyond.
That is beyond the pill. And I think that's, my mother used to say something. If we were naughty, she'd say, now this is beyond a joke. And that just came into my mind when you said that about why now. And I think it's because it's beyond a joke. I think people are recognizing, oh, just a minute, I don't have to accept this. This is not what life is supposed to be about. Life is meant to be filled with joy. We can, and gurus have been saying this for hundreds of years now, we can sacrifice the suffering. This is absolutely our choice. And we can choose to go one way, or we can choose to go the other way. We keep going back to push less, allow more. So the more I allow myself to have an open mind and an open heart, and let's go back to the very beginning of this, is this 5,000 years of coercive energy was based on brain and just brain.
Yeah.
Heart was not even considered for the last 5,000 years. Secretly, we all kept our hearts. But now people are beginning to recognize, you know what? The heart was here first. The heart was here before the brain. Okay. Feelings and thoughtfulness, loving kindness was here before all of this other stuff took over. So the last 5,000 years of coercive yang energy is the reason why now people are beginning to say, I'm done. I'm done with all this misery. I'm done with all this unkindness. And yes, we're still an awful lot to do, but there are an awful lot of people on this planet who are working very, very hard. I've been watching this now for many, many years, just working very, very hard and doing the best they can to be decent, loving, kind people. There's far more of them than the other. Let's call them the other. Okay. The ones that are cruel and vindictive and grabbing and greedy, their lifespan, I think, as course, I'm not saying as a people, but as an energy is beginning to be weakened. There are far more people who want peace and harmony than there are people who want to maintain power. And I think that's very supportive. And I think it's, I love the idea of it. And that's what I work for on a daily basis. The more kindness that we can show each other. I've noticed, I don't go out and about that much anymore, but I have noticed, like the other day, somebody took me to the supermarket so I could have a walk around, see what I wanted to get for me on my shopping list, is that so many people smiled at me and said, hello. I don't remember that 4 years ago, but more and more people are doing it. And I think more and more people are beginning to recognize that we have to stop all this misery. We can sacrifice the misery, sacrifice the suffering.
Well, I think it's important because it's expansion, and I think that's the piece that we're talking about here. Is humanity has gotten out of survival mode and out of these centers of survival and fight or flight. Like, we still need those mechanisms in place, but we're moving beyond that and out of the age of information and into the age of intelligence, this super intelligence. And we're not talking AI here. We're talking the intelligence we've always known, the information that's always been there is moving into the heart. And it's not woo only. There's science into this, where humanity is moving towards wholeness, towards a unified space, and moving their consciousness, or if you can call it energy, you can call it vibration. It's really all the same. And we're talking in this space of like moving beyond those survival, power, greed, money. And we're seeing that doubling down, I think. Big pharma, big food, these spaces where the old and the new kind of philosophies of life, it's not or. I feel like the word and is appropriate here. We need those things. And has been one of those words that's had another many layers to it in my life is it's not duality. It's not or, it's this and. We're moving up. We're moving out of this and into this space of being, not doing, because we are human beings. We're not human doers. We do, but then all of a sudden the outside world just doesn't feel like, we have all this level of success. And then all of a sudden we're not whole. We don't feel right. There's something missing. And that missing is that wholeness. That's what we're talking about, I think, in this eloquent, nice way of, we're not vilifying anybody, but we're moving beyond the archaic things that have been around for a while. It's just, we're moving beyond that. And I feel like this is the time. You and I have had lots of conversations. This is why one of my friends calls it the conscious Avengers, like the people that are out there building these bridge towards a better way of living, a better way of life, a better way of humanity. Because I think we are ready. I think our species, our evolution of humanity has gotten us to this place where I also think this is why it's a little sticky. I use the caterpillar turning into the butterfly analogy, like we're the chrysalis, we're in the middle, right? We're moving from this age of information and into intelligence and these new and beautiful ways of expanding our consciousness and growing in ways that we could use this beautiful brain of ours beyond just the intelligence we have today. And we're right there in the middle of it, right? That what's in that middle, right? That bunch of goo that doesn't know, but somehow energy and love and what all that stuff does is it emerges into the beautiful butterfly, and that becomes transformation.
I think that's a great analogy. And I think it's often, it does get overlooked. I mean, the caterpillar, was eating its way into oblivion, if you like, ignoring everything that was going on and just munching away and causing all that damage and havoc. But as far as he was concerned, or it was concerned, he or she, it, is basically providing for itself. And then suddenly it finds this need to cocoon and become this goo. And eventually, and the struggle that the butterfly has in getting out of the cocoon is where we are, I think, as a humanity right now. There are lots of people in cocoons. They don't really know what's going on inside, which is, really, really sad. But it's that unconditional love and coming to a place of love. And that means going back to our hearts, not the machine that's pumping blood around our bodies. That's obviously an important part, but that heart where we really look at ourselves and understand, what's my part in all of this? What am I doing to improve everybody's lives outside of my own circle? I can't keep munching on the leaves and creating havoc as a caterpillar. When am I going to come into the cocoon of knowing that there's something more than just this? There's something more. And everybody's beginning to see it. I say everybody, I know there are some people who absolutely have no clue, but all we can do is put out conditional love for them. Unconditional love, I should say, and just that force of loving energy that thousands and thousands of people, I'm in all these big groups of meditation, and there have been for many, many years. We can change that energy, and that energy is slowly shifting. And no matter what's going on politically, all over the world, it's not just here, it's all over the world. That's the coercive energy that is slowly disintegrating. And that's where we need to consider that in the meantime, all of us in our little cocoons, are we ready to step up and be loving, kind, thoughtful beings in the future?
And I believe that. I truly do, because I see it too. More and more conversations I'm having. I think people, whether you want to call it an awakening or a realization, is, I think, and you said it right. Like, I've been in these meditation groups where thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are all changing the energy, and you can actually, they actually measure this. They see the energy shifts, which is really cool for my analytical brain. But the energy does have, like, we can shift humanity's energy with the singular approach we take. And I feel like that's a big lesson for me and for everybody, is we can only affect what we do, right? Is what we do, which affects the whole. And that convergence happens.
Well, there's, and it's seeing what's inside of you. That's accepting the responsibility for ourselves. Seeing what's inside and let go the thoughts and find the quietness. And it's in those moments that we actually go, okay, what can I do to improve? Again, let's go back to the great integrity. What can I do to make my life more loving and kind inside of me first, so that I can be loving and kind for people outside of me?
And listening, like you said, was really beautiful, is the pause, right? The pause of the non-doing is when the voice comes, right? And a lot of the times we're stuck on the phone, we're doing all these things, and there's no intentionality around non-doing these days. And I feel like that the more I sit and wait and pause and do the things that I need to do to quiet down, then that's when the downloads come. That's when the intuition comes in. That's when the harmony and the beautiful ideas come through, rather than always being plugged in. And I've been reading a lot about this and seeing a lot about this. This is why we call it, like, going out in nature and pausing and putting space in your calendar to literally be.
Yeah, go and hug a tree. I know people used to laugh at that years ago, but now people are going, oh, you're giving and receiving in hugging a tree.
Well, we all are connected, right? Everything is connected, and we don't sense it with our minds. That's the point. Is even if you just don't even are aware, and you're in your forest bathing or you're in nature, it's the disconnect. I read this the other day, was we are 60% less connected to nature than we ever have been in our cycle, because of all the things that are keeping us out of alignment and plugged into non-reality, I guess.
Right. And that's coercive. But we have power. It's a gift to be human. So we have the power. We have that power to unplug if we want to.
It's always a choice, right? It's the choice we make.
Right. That's right. We don't.
So I want to switch gears, because we're almost at our time space. I wish we had more. I don't want to ask you a question. Is, what's one simple but powerful shift any listener could make right now in their lives to bring more harmony and more positive energy into their life?
One thing, that's a hard one.
Whatever comes to mind.
Well, I feel that we should, each and every one of us, take care of ourselves and be responsible for ourselves first. And, I'm a big believer in that, because if I'm upset about something, then it's my responsibility to find the solace that I need. And that means stepping outside 9 times out of 10. I've got this beautiful pond, etc. I spend a lot of time outside in nature, just being, just literally being in nature, not doing anything. I'm not walking a marathon anymore. Not that would be nice. I'm not, I'm not doing marathons anymore. I'm not sailing. I'm not running. I'm not jumping. I'm just being in nature. And just if we can learn just to be in our own selves, even if it means that you can't, if you live in a city, if you can find a little park somewhere, then just be in nature. If you have a balcony, just sit, be in nature. It's all around us. Nobody's taking it away. There's a lot.
I love that. And
Yeah.
that's what I did this morning. I have my morning ritual, as you know. And I have a little balcony, and it's almost like a little treetop. I sit and watch all my trees and the beautiful sky, and I just sit. I don't even contemplate. I just sit and be.
Just
And
be.
it's so therapeutic.
Right.
So I love that.
And don't forget, the butterfly can pollinate, a caterpillar cannot. So
That's a deepening. That's the deepening of my analogy I hadn't really thought of.
there we go. As we become the beautiful butterflies that we all are, then we can spread this goodness. We can give and receive. We can receive it and we can give it, which is the basis of Feng Shui, is giving and receiving.
Cyd, what do you most hope people will feel and carry with them from your work?
Peace and tranquility. I thought, that's my goal, is for people not to be suffering. And a lot of our suffering we do to ourselves. I recognize that. I recognize a lot of my learnings from my experiences. I had a part in it, but getting to that place of peaceful tranquility, I think, is the goal. I'm knocking on the door of my 80s very soon, which is hard to imagine. And the more I do so, the more I recognize that I'm still in a hurry to spread this peacefulness to everybody. And there are plenty of opportunities for people to do so. There are plenty of people doing what I'm doing, but just open up your hearts to receive. It's so simple, but I also recognize how incredibly hard it can be if we resist. So don't resist.
I think that's the allowing part that we all can learn from every day. We all resist and attach to things, and allowing them to be unattached and to not be attached is such a beautiful thing, and to just allow things to come the way they're supposed to. Because that's how I've lived life for a long time, and you've helped me in many ways. You work with people, but you also work with organizations and businesses on these concepts and moving these things energetically, not only for businesses and professionals, but for people. So we'll share with how on the links here on how people can get in touch with you in case they want to learn more or want to have a beautiful conversation.
Okay, I'm always open for a conversation. I think, the more we can share with each other, the more we can learn about each other, because we do lead rather isolated lives. And especially, a lot of people are now self-employed, or they're working from home, or in different professions than they set out to be, which I think is a good thing. I think the more that we move away from the coercive energy, and it's happening, and I'm very excited about that. I have seen a huge change in the last 30 years, and it is escalating now. People are recognizing that they don't have to be lawyers and judges and all those kinds of things. There's another part of life that they can really love and enjoy. They want to plant trees, or they want to make pottery, then do it. Who said you can't do it? Well, I know who said you can't do it, your ancestors. But You know, we are people in our own right, and we're loving, kind, generous people. All of us, even those that we don't see as that, down inside, that's who they are as well.
Thank you for that. It's such a beautiful time to always have good, beautiful conversations with you. Thank you for sharing this wonderful conversation with the world, I guess, in the way and manner in which you shine. So you've been a real big part of my life and journey. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend.
And I thank you for walking this journey with me, Josh. It's been a lot of fun. And I hope it goes on a lot longer.
Yes, I believe it's
There's a lot to learn yet.
For sure.
Okay.
All right. That's a wrap, guys.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Cyd. It's been such a fun time. Until next time, stay well.
You too. Bless you. Bye.
Thanks for joining me today on Beyond the Pills. If our mission to deprescribe 10 million unnecessary medications resonates with you, share this episode, subscribe, and leave a review. Whether you're a practitioner or someone ready to reclaim your health, visit rx2wellness.com for free resources to begin your journey. Together, let's go beyond the pills and co-create a world of vibrant health and true healing. Until next time, live better and stay well.